Good morning. I am going to be sharing a little bit of my story today. It's a lot more about me than about our journey through Acts, but yeah, I'm just going to frame it within what we've been doing in Acts. So bear with me. I'm going to be reading, as I often do when I am speaking in church. And I'll try not to say so many times. I just wanted to say that we really enjoyed your moment of stardom last week, Craig, and I have had a little think about real YouTube stardom. And given the events of this week, I have realized that true YouTube stardom comes when you do something really embarrassing on screen, like put a mask over your eyes. I'm not going to do anything like that, I hope. I don't really want YouTube stardom, so hopefully I can just be a little bit encouraging and mostly just share where I'm at. So we've been journeying through Acts as a book. It is a book that's full of action. There's revival, there are miracles, there's beatings, there's escapes, there's singing in prison cells, mass prayer meetings. A kid falls out of the window during church. He dies and then is revived. Then I was thinking about those moments in between. What about those moments sitting in prison day after day, or being under house arrest? Paul spent a lot of time under house arrest, or climbing yet another steep hill on a long, tiring journey. What happened in those spaces and acts? What happened in the characters' hearts and minds as they toiled through those moments? So lots of you know that I have been struggling with burnout. When I saw a psychologist just before coronavirus hit, she gave me a label to this thing I'd been feeling and fighting. I was showing signs of burnout, and so much so I was now depressed. So as lockdown came around and I actually just left my life completely, and I went to stay all alone, like all alone, at Hole in the Wall for 2 weeks. I love time alone. It's the space that I am energized by. I'm clearly a bit of an introvert, and I especially love those times because I feel like God really speaks to me in those moments when I go and try retreat and spend some time just being in his word and hearing his voice. But this time I just felt too tired to even pursue him. I felt too tired to try and hold on to truth. And truth be told, I had not heard God for quite a while. It felt like God was silent in my life. I couldn't feel him. And slowly I realized that this wasn't going to be a time where I was going to hear God a lot. 2 weeks wasn't going to be 2 weeks filled with amazing revelation from God and words for other people. I slowly realized that I was coming into a new season, and God was asking me if I could be still and know him. Passive, nothing active. I went back to Acts. I spoke about Acts recently. We looked at Acts 18 verse 9, where Paul has this supernatural vision and a word of encouragement. And I was wondering if Paul maybe was feeling jaded like I did. He really did have every reason. I mean, everywhere he went, there was opposition. And everywhere he went, he just kept on giving of himself. The opposition was physical, being beaten and thrown out of places. It was emotional and against his character. Just before this vision in Acts 18, the Bible talks about there being vicious slander against him. It was political, both in the church and outside the church. And I know that without the beatings and the physical opposition, I feel constantly under fire. I feel like this encouragement was to a tired Paul. The Lord spoke to Paul and said, I'm going to put these verses on screen. I do want to just in this moment thank my amazing tech team. Ben, you're awesome. And why is this not happening? Okay, getting there. Thank you. Okay, so I'm hoping that that is now shared on the screen. Supposed to make it full screen. So one night, the Lord spoke to Paul in a supernatural vision and said, "Don't ever be afraid. Speak the words that I give you, and don't be intimidated, because I am with you. No one will be able to hurt you, for there are many in the city whom I call my own." Okay. I started thinking about Jesus as well and his ministry. Each gospel writer tells us very intentionally about the moments where Jesus went away to pray. And I started really thinking about these times. What happened between the Father and the Son in these moments? I want to read Psalm 46, which really has been what God has been specifically putting on my heart in this season. Okay, please read with me. God, you're such a safe and powerful place to find a refuge. You've a proven help in my time of trouble, more than enough, and always available whenever I need you. So we will never fear, even if every structure of support were to crumble away. We will not fear, even when the earth quakes and shakes, moving mountains and casting them into the sea. For the raging roar of stormy winds and crashing waves cannot erode our faith in you. Pause in his presence. God has a constantly flowing river, whose sparkling streams bring joy and delight to his people. His river flows right through the city of God Most High, into his holy dwelling places. God is in the midst of his city, secure and never shaken. At daybreak, his help will be seen with the appearing of dawn. When the nations are in uproar, when they're tottering kingdoms, God simply raises his voice, and the earth begins to disintegrate before him. Here he comes, the commander, the mighty Lord of angel armies is on our side. The God of Jacob fights for us. Pause in his presence. Everyone look, come and see the breathtaking wonders of God. For he brings both ruin and revival. He's the one who makes conflicts end throughout the earth, breaking and burning every weapon of war. Surrender your anxiety. Be still, be silent, and stop your striving, and you will see that I am God. I am the God above all the nations, and I will be exalted throughout the whole earth. Here he stands, the commander, the mighty Lord of angel armies, is on our side. The God of Jacob fights for us. Pause in his presence. Can you remember a moment as a child when you got lost in a crowd? Your heart started to beat faster. You felt the panic welling up. You were about to wail when you felt a strong, familiar hand on your shoulder. Your daddy, or maybe somebody else who was a protector to you, had found you. You were safe. You slipped your hand into his, and you knew he was your dad. And that said so much more. And that was enough. What does it mean in the panic of life to pause in his presence, as Psalm 46 says? When the nations are in uproar with their tottering kingdoms and scary epidemics, what does it mean to pause in his presence when the pause feels like the calm before the storm of coronavirus? These are the questions I've been asking myself. I picture myself in a battle. I'm a general. the defeat rains down around me. The enemy seems to have the upper hand. It's chaos when suddenly my King comes charging up alongside of me. He is an ancient king. He has known this enemy for eons, and he's already defeated this foe so many times. And even now, here he comes, the commander, the mighty Lord of angel armies is on my side. The ancient God of Jacob fights for me. He simply raises his voice, and the earth begins to disintegrate before him. The battle is no longer mine. I can truly pause in his presence. I can stop and look up into his confident, loving eyes and know that he is God. God is teaching me what it means to be quiet, to simply put my hand into his hand, to stop all my thoughts, to stop straining to hear his voice, to stop looking all around, trying to work out what God needs to or what he will do next and what I need to pray about, and to be still, silent, and just to know, to surrender all my anxiety and to know. Coming back to Jesus, in those moments he went to commune with the Father. I'm wondering if they were more silent than I imagined. I wonder if Jesus just went to sit with his Father and know him again, know himself again. Jesus never came away from these places and times with new insights or strategies for his disciples. At least that's never reflected in what we read. He came back and slipped straight back into his place of ministry. I think that Jesus heard the instruction and words of the Father on the job. He said, I and the Father are one. His alone time with the Father, where he was just in his Father's presence, allowed him to know the Father and to carry that knowing into his work life, where he just always knew the will of the Father. Even to Paul, the Lord says, speak the words that I will give you. But then he doesn't go on to give him the words. He rather reminds Paul to be silent, to not ever be afraid, to know that he, the Lord, would always be with Paul. When we come into this place of confidently knowing, the most amazing thing happens. The song of praise slowly starts to bubble up inside of us. Psalm 57 verse 7 says, my heart, O God, is quiet and confident. Now I can sing with passion your wonderful praises. I used to think that I needed to worship to do warfare. But now I'm wondering if the war isn't already won, and what I need is to be quiet and still and know and become confident in who my Father is. And then worship will bubble out of me. And as it does, the enemy will see that I already know he is defeated. There is a place where worship is more active in defeating the enemy, in certain spiritual spaces or in our minds. But I wonder how often being in a place of worship actually just brings us back to a place of knowing, remembering who God is. To share some other verses and that God has been speaking through to me in the past while. Also just want to share that Ron has encouraged us to do a healthy spirituality devotional that really is all about this. It's all about the being quiet. Each time you start, you spend 2 minutes just being quiet and just being, not necessarily hearing, just being. Quiet your heart in his presence and pray. Keep hope alive as long as you long for God to come through for you. Quiet your heart in His presence and pray. Keep hope alive as you long for God to come through for you. A very familiar one, but just in a different translation, Psalm 23. He offers a resting place for me in His luxurious love. His tracks take me to an oasis of peace, the quiet brook of bliss. Psalm 91, verse 1 to 3. When you sit enthroned under the shadow of Shaddai, you are hidden in the strength of God Most High. Picture yourself in that place, quietly. The storm roars around you, but you are sitting in the shadow of God Most High. He's the hope that holds me and the stronghold to shelter me, the only God for me and my great confidence. He will rescue you from every hidden trap of the enemy, and He will protect you from false accusation and any deadly curse. His massive arms are wrapped around you, protecting you. You can run under His covering of majesty and hide. His arms of faithfulness are a shield keeping you from harm. You will never worry about an attack of demonic forces at night, nor have to fear a spirit of darkness coming against you. Don't fear a thing. Whether by night or by day, demonic danger will not trouble you, nor the powers of evil launched against you. Even in a time of disaster, when thousands and thousands are being killed, you will remain unscathed and unharmed. You will be a spectator as the wicked perish in judgment, for they will be paid back for what they have done. When we live our lives within the shadow of God Most High, our secret hiding place, we will always be shielded from harm. How then could evil prevail against us, or disease infect us? God sends angels with special orders to protect you wherever you go, defending you from all harm. If you walk into a trap, they'll be there for you and keep you from stumbling. You'll even walk unharmed among the fiercest powers of darkness, trampling every one of them beneath your feet. And then in the Gospels, Jesus said, I leave the gift of peace with you, my peace, not the kind of fragile peace given by the world, but my perfect peace. Don't yield to fear or be troubled in your hearts. Instead, be courageous. In Philippians 4, Paul talks about this peace which transcends all understanding and will guard your hearts and minds. I love one of the quotes that Bill Johnson often says about this peace. He says, to have peace that passes understanding, I must give up the right to understand. This morning we read about Mary. Jesus said to Martha, when Martha was upset that Mary was sitting in Jesus' presence, just being. Mary has discovered the one thing most important by choosing to sit at my feet. She is undistracted, and I won't take this privilege from her. To end off, I just want to share something that God showed me. Very exciting. I heard His voice again this week. Actually, while I was reading Bible stories to my kids, we were reading about Samuel, and it really stood out to me that Samuel was sleeping in the house of the Lord where the ark was. The ark was God's presence. Samuel chose to sleep near to God's presence. He was really just being in God's presence. Again, He wasn't straining to hear God's voice. As a matter of fact, from the story, he was not even expecting to hear God's voice. He was just being still. I want to be like that, resting right there in God's presence, just knowing. Later, another day in the week when we were reading, we read about how the Israelites were having a bad time in battle. So they run off and they go fetch the ark and they bring God's presence into the battle. But just before this, there's a conversation. They're asking each other why God had been allowing their defeat. They definitely did not get this God that they were taking into battle. They did not know him. And I wondered if that's what I sometimes do. I take God's presence with me because I want him to bless what I do. But I forget who he is. I stop being in awe, and I'm not being silent and knowing my Savior. And I'm unable to worship him because I've forgotten. I just want to end off with reading something that I wrote in this space of questioning and understanding. I'm not going to put it on the screen. I'm just going to read it to you. I love you, O Lord. I love you, O Lord, my Papa. You know my heart inside out and inside in. You created me to be yours. When I am yours, I am complete. In you, I am all I am. I love you, O Lord, my strong tower. When I am all fallen, you reach to me and scoop me up on those everlasting arms. Your grip is sure. You won't let me fall. I love you, O Lord, my friend. You make me laugh when I feel sad. You listen to my heart when I need a friend, just to hear me. You speak such truth into my mind when my mind wanders away. You are my most comfortable place. I love you, O Lord, my teacher and guide. There is no place that I fear when I follow you. You lead me into truth and light. You lead my heart when my mind is lost. Your chest is full of great treasure. I love you, O Lord, my God. You are the one I worship. In your temple I fall down in awe. In your embrace I come apart, and yet I am whole. I want to live my life at your feet. I come before you broken and ashamed. I come and give you my shattered pieces. You create a new me. You make me beautiful. You use my mistakes as the surface to paste the glue of your love on. And you create a masterpiece. You hear me cry out in hopelessness. You hear me shout my angry praise. You hear me whisper, I give up. And you turn me again to that secret place. And you show me again that love picture so divine. And I remember again how it is your love can take my broken pieces and put them all together. I hear you cry out, it is finished. And I know it is all done. You have made all things new. I love you, O Lord my God. So that is all that I wanted to share today. I hope it's maybe rings true with other people, and maybe it's just an encouragement not to strive in this season, but to just be quiet and to find that place of deep rest, even when life seems out of control. We are going to join together for Zoom meeting at 10 o'clock. I trust you will be able to have some worship before. I send some worship songs on our group that you might want to use. Please feel free to do other worship if you wish. And then if you can bring something for communion, it will be really awesome to share communion together over Zoom. And yeah, Craig is just going to share something with us at the beginning of the Zoom about a challenge that he wanted to put to us last week, that we can do as a community of faith. Thank you for listening to me.